Hey, welcome back to another episode of Ecommerce On Tap, brought to you by Sourcify. I'm your host, Nathan Resnick. Today we're joined by Mike Bryan. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You've been an Amazon seller yourself, and you've kind of gone from this, side hustle to brand building and helping Amazon sellers do that. I'm curious, walk us through that transition. What category were you in? What does that look like from going from side hustle to, full-time brand building?
Yeah, so it started out really trying to find. I think if you were to look at my Amazon, I still have my brand going on Amazon. It's in the we'll call it the disposable tableware segment or category. It really just started out with trying everything in the RA space, OA, wholesale, and then finally settled on private label because it fit me better, and I didn't care for the RA realm. And I don't want to criticize anybody for doing RA because it people can still make it work, but I just didn't care for the hunting every day, and so I wanted to build a more of a solid brand, and did that. And I would say the pandemic accelerated that. I was doing decent in 2020. 2021 took off. 2022, I think everybody found that it fell back to earth a bit, and still, I would say challenged in that regards in 2023. So
I was going to say, from what we've seen at Sourcify, the growth during COVID was phenomenal, and now it's, brands are still growing, but a bit stagnant, and especially cash flow is a challenge right now.
it is indeed with the way that the inflation has taken things and dumped it on its head. And I still think there's a lot of people who are, especially if you've had to buy larger volume back in the front half of 2023, still probably suffering a bit from that too. So it's challenging, yet it can still be overcome, especially if you've got the right systems in place to be able to handle it from, and I would say cash flow being the big one, but also, working with the vendors as much, leaning on any lever one can find to get in, whether it's in the sourcing space, finding the better source, finding sources who will work with you on terms. It really comes down to just doing a lot of legwork to get it back to where it was, even I would say pre-pandemic for many.
Makes sense. So what are you doing on that front in terms of, you're selling on Amazon right now? I know you've got
Mhm.
your seller's operating system, so we'll dive into that and understand the
Yeah.
dynamics behind that. But I guess, what does that look like for you as a brand owner right now? Going through this kind of transition of everything's going like crazy to now, how do we find stability here?
Yeah, I think as a friend told me in earlier this year about getting tight in terms of getting tight on expenses, getting just super tight on everything, just to keep that cash flow safe and steady. And that's where for me, earlier this year I started Prime Seller Solutions and introduced the seller's operating system as a means of helping those brand owners, business owners, e-commerce business owners get under, just because many of them, I'll say this much, I don't want to say this negatively, but fell into something good, right? And so maybe they were a teacher, maybe they were in some other profession, but business has not been their thing, but they're selling, and suddenly they realize, how do I do this? And so the seller's operating system really is taking it from creating that understanding of what it is that their clients are looking for, understanding where their people congregate. For example, let's say we're in the napkin business and wedding napkin business, right? And so the idea is, where are those wedding planners? Where do they congregate? I'm sure there's a Facebook group out there for them. So that's if one were to look at that part of it, that's one part of it. And then the other part of it is, what's our unique offering? What is what innovative piece do we bring to that? And then as a business owner, how do I get out of running the day to day? Because so many that I've talked to just don't have the time to do everything. They get stressed. And so now it becomes, okay, what systems can we put in place? And that becomes a bigger question about, okay, have we got things documented so at least we can offload some of it to give us that point of where we're working in that sweet spot. If you can think of a Venn diagram of all those three things I mentioned, between what are your clients, who are they, who do you identify with, what's your unique offering, and what systems you have in place, and you're working in that sweet spot, and that's really where you want to be working from. So that's what the seller's operating system is really all about.
Makes sense. And so what's your main focus at Prime Seller Solutions? Is it around implementing the seller's operating system, or kind of what is the main focus there? How do you work with different Amazon brands, and what's the main focal point?
Yeah, the main focal point is exactly what I just went through, the understanding their sweet spot to get them to once this has been launched, I'll be a strategist for the Pumpkin Plan. If Mike Michalowicz, the author, he wrote Profit First. And the big part of that, the idea behind the Pumpkin Plan, is the fact that you want to weed out all those things that are either taking up your time, that are just a waste of time, that are sucking away, whether it's cash, whether it's time, whether it's energy, to get to the point where you're working on those things that make you the most money. But also, let's not forget, as business owners, finding those things that give you energy back, right? I mean, because we work on so many things that are just like, oh, can I find somebody to do this for me? And so that's a big part of the seller's operating system, is to really this fully integrated piece, but at the same time is working in 90-day segments. And this is where having worked in businesses that have run traction and EOS, is this idea of 90-day windows. What are we going to get done? What do we got? Now, granted, there are times within this business you have to be looking 6 months out for those new products. But if that's what you've decided that you're going to do, then let's get after the next 90 days. What can we get done in the next 90 days to achieve that goal? So that's what I've been working with clients on, is getting not only their mindset right around that sweet spot, but also that execution piece. And that's what the seller's operating systems really meant to do, is set the vision, get the vision, mission, get those immutable laws or values established, so that you can run a business that's really based on the business owner's values and what they believe to be how to run the business. And at the same time, there's got to be some execution that gets done.
Makes sense. Let's run through a case study, if we can. I mean, maybe someone that you've worked with in the past, or even operating and running your own Amazon business. What does that look like when you analyze how do I focus on these profit creating initiatives, and how do I get away from doing certain tasks that I might not enjoy as much? What does that look like? If someone wants to implement the seller's operating system, what does that look like?
I have a client who he just wanted to have a 2-week break, a continuous 2-week break where he is not working on the business, being in the business. And so what we worked on was, okay, what do we need to find these objectives, because he had nothing for KPIs. So he had a lot of things set up on the front end. He was doing great in terms of, so when we stepped into it, I didn't have to really deal too much in the sweet spot. He knew what he needed, but he did need somebody from an operations standpoint to step in and handle it. So we established, okay, what are the KPIs that you need to be focused on? And then what are we working on in the next 90 days to get to that point? And so he's doing really well. He's launched, he had already had some stuff in the works, but we just make sure that we got those things that he really wanted to focus on done and executed. But at the same time, just giving him the peace of mind that, hey, I can step away and enjoy my time for a 2-week block. So.
Yeah, I feel like so many entrepreneurs and founders, especially in the e-commerce world, get trapped in that experience of working in their business instead of on their business. And it sounds like, a lot of what this operating system reflects is how do you focus on, the bigger picture instead of in the weeds. And I think that's really hard to do as a founder and entrepreneur as you scale your e-commerce brand. I'm curious, from your experience selling on Amazon, what do you see as the current climate happening in the marketplace, right? I think, flipping gears here a little bit, but, Amazon has changed a lot. There's a lot more, international / Chinese sellers competing directly with American brands that are producing in China. What's going on with the marketplace overall right now? What's your current pulse that you hear from your clients? What do you feel in terms of the current dynamic?
Yeah, the one thing that I think I appreciate that Amazon is at least doing, it from an overall standpoint, they're it feels like they're moving away from where things were, say, 6 years ago, in terms of, hey, just jump on Alibaba, AliExpress, find something cheap, let's sell it. And so that moving from that to building a brand, right? Building a brand that can be, social media has obviously changed a whole lot of that. I'm thinking of, the TikTok influencer, now that Amazon, they've got their own influencer program. And so they're focused more on quality and moving away from that commodity product that like Temu or Shein or whatever how you pronounce that particular website that is moving into the market. And I would say even Walmart is more on that price conscious side of things, whereas I think what Amazon has done is really focused on the convenience part of it, and then also building out quality. I just saw today that they've got their AI for photography now to do lifestyle pictures, and to me that does change a bit more, because now people who, rather than having to go spend a ton of money on lifestyle photography, now can jump in, and that changes a lot of things, I think, from a standpoint of that piece. So that's why I think Amazon is and let's face it, they've got their enough government's eyeballs on them, that rather than being this protective nature that they had one time, now they're having to really pony up data when it comes to, you're seeing a lot more in the ads management piece, and so it's interesting to see how they've made the changes to whether they're forced by governments or they're not. I think they're understanding where their place in the market is more and more. So.
Makes sense. I mean, they definitely have come over more and more government scrutiny and investigations around data privacy and monopolistic practices. I'm curious, one topic we were discussing a bit before we started recording were these, large Amazon aggregators. Everyone in the space knows about Thrasio, Heyday. I mean, you name it. A lot of these aggregators are struggling right now, given the current climate. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I guess the one question I would throw there, did a lot of these brands that they went out and bought, were Thrasio and the like victims of jumping too soon because of the pandemic? Were there a lot of brands that were maybe overvalued, that had it not been a pandemic time period, would they have thought otherwise? And so, and throw in the fact that, has inflation hurt a lot of these aggregators as well? So those are my two takeaways from where they're at. I mean, it's unfortunate, because there's actually some of those aggregators are pretty good operators, but I think they might be just they have jumped. Go back to early 2000s when we had the bubble of people jumping on. Well, even to a certain degree, before Elon Musk bought Twitter, it hasn't turned a profit, and granted, it's turning into a GameStop in terms of not having a profit, but people still find value with it. So I feel bad for them, but at the same time, they're victims of their own over exuberance, I guess you could say.
Makes sense. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining us on E-commerce on Tap. If people want to learn more or get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, head on over to primesellersolutions.com. That's primesellersolutions.com. And if you head on over there, head on over to primesellersolutions.com/Nathan. We'll give them a free assessment of where their business is at. And if they want to learn more about their own business and how maybe we could help them with theirs, that'd be great.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening in to this episode of E-commerce on Tap, brought to you by Sourcify.